Okay, Dr. Emilia Thompson, thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks for making the time to come in. I know you are very, very busy doing podcasts, teaching in Manchester Metropolitan Uni, doing diet and coaching and stuff like that for people. We were really excited to get you on. So first thing, I wanted to know, obviously you've got an academic background. You're a lecturer in sports nutrition, but you've also competed as well recently. So what came first? Were you studying the academic side of nutrition and thought, I really want to put this into practice, or was it the other way around?
Academia came first for me. Like, I always loved science and I always loved studying. So I basically did 10 years of post high school study through undergrad, master's, PhD. And then I started teaching, and it wasn't until I started teaching I got into competing.
Okay.
And I got into competing not really for the kind of nutrition side of it, just because I went through some life situations and it kind of made me want to feel strong and it made me want to do something different. And so that's why I got into it. And then I realised actually competing is just like a big science experiment. Like, you put your body through so many different things and you get to watch your body change. And then they kind of amalgamated into this kind of science and evidence-based nutrition kind of together.
Oh, wow.
So science was always my number one.
Had you always gone to the gym anyway? Had you always trained growing up?
I've always been like fit. I always used to run and do something. I went to the gym when I was like 16 on and off, but never properly. So I went to Loughborough to do my master's and my PhD. So in Loughborough, I think it's the ratio of men to women is like 8-1. Right. And so lots of men. So all of my good friends were men at the time, and they had the gym at the uni was really good. And like I said, I had a boyfriend at the time who was just a bit not great. And as a result of that, my friends were like, we're going to get you to feel strong. And when you feel physically strong, you're going to feel mentally strong. And so they started taking me to the gym, and they were, helping me squat and all of those things. And then I got addicted, really, from that. So
it is addictive though, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
Without a doubt, in a good way, to an extent.
To an extent, yeah.
It's brilliant, and it's totally worth mentioning as well. You talked about the connection between mental and physical. It's not just about improving the shape of your body, is it?
Yeah.
It's funnily enough, Greg and I became friends in the gym a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, and we were talking about doing this podcast last year, maybe about a year ago now, and then we actually, David, who runs the studio here, who produces the show, we also met him in the gym. So it just shows how powerful it can be.
We just meet guys in the gym. That's what we do.
Can you help me?
We don't train, we just stand outside the showers. Like.
You have to come and join us.
I know. Go to the wrong gym. But it is though, right? Same as this kind of online fitness community. It brings people together in a community that a lot of the time you don't get that support from elsewhere. So you don't necessarily get that gym type support from family or friends that you've got already, and so the gym kind of offers a place to network, but also tends to bring people that are quite like-minded in some ways together that you don't necessarily meet anywhere else. Yeah. So it is nice. Yeah, it really brings together people that don't necessarily get to meet, which I like.
Yeah, I suppose, if you're conversing with someone in the gym, they're going to share certain qualities like discipline and, they're going to look after themselves and they're going to probably have a positive sort of go-getter type attitude. So you're going to tend to agree on things, which means the friendships that you do form are going to be a lot stronger, aren't they?
Yeah, I think there's not many places in your life that you have so you have shared values with different people, right? So you might have shared values of relationships with some of your girlfriends or guy friends or whatever, and different values elsewhere. But in the gym, you've all got that shared value of health that you can't really get in other places. So you bond over shared values, and that's how I think you get the best connections from people. So it offers that kind of unique aspect, which is nice.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. So you when you were studying, right? Were you still studying to get your PhD, and then you decided to compete? And was there a point where you thought, I'm going to have a go at this?
Yeah, so I was doing my PhD. I was in my final year of my PhD when I was like, right, I'm going to start competing, and that's when I started. I got a coach. I started lifting properly. I put myself into a calorie surplus really to focus on building muscle, and that's kind of the start of my final year of competing. Of my PhD, I was like, I'm going to compete, and it kind of gave me a focus alongside my PhD because I was working. PhD was like 6 a.m. until 10 o'clock at night, so it was really intense. Wow. But the gym was next door, so it kind of was like my little relief at lunchtime. which was great. And then I actually started my first day of competition prep on the first day I started my job lecturing. And so I walked into like my new department with like this bag of meal prep and like all my energy drinks and stuff. And I walked in and I was like, yeah, I'm on comp prep. And they were like, right, we're going out for Friday drinks. And I was like, sorry, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I can't do anything for the next 10 weeks. And that was like my first ever comp prep. So I was really, really regimented. And so I kind of started competing as soon as I started teaching. And it was quite weird for me because I went into nutrition department. Everyone was like, a lot of people were a bit older than me and they were very kind of health focused. And I went in and I was like, right, I'm starving myself and I'm going to get on stage and all of these students in front of me are going to see me in a bikini. So it was really like, I just had to go in with it straight away and be like, this is what I do. Just be prepared. This is what my social media looks like. And this is, because it's, I think as a PhD and as a doctor and as a lecturer, obviously people have certain expectations of you not to be in your bikini on social media, right?
Yeah.
But that's part of what I do. And also I was teaching physiology and I was teaching sports nutrition, so I could kind of sell it like I'm practicing what I preach in that sense. And it did actually help in the sense of students. I've got a lot of students on social media, and the buy-in from them was actually I think better because they could see all that side of it. So it was a challenge, but it's good. I kind of moved to Manchester with this kind of new identity. As much as I hate saying at the time that was my identity, it probably was. So it kind of could start as I meant to go on. So it worked quite well.
You just said then that 10 to 6 was your studying.
6 to 10.
Sorry, 6 to 10. And your downtime was training.
Yeah.
How on earth did you find the time to get in a calorie surplus? When were you eating and preparing the food?
Do you know what?
Were you the early food prep adopter or something?
Do you know what? I think when you're doing a PhD, right, the way that my office was set up was like there's a kitchen right there. So and everyone's quite like-minded. So everyone would train at lunch, whether people were lifting or cycling, especially in Loughborough, it's a sports campus. Yeah. So everyone's doing it. So it's completely understandable to do all those things. I think that there's more of a struggle for me was when I started teaching, and I would be doing like a 4-hour lab. And when I first started, I had a coach the first time I ever competed, and he was sort of saying, you need to eat every 3 hours or something. And so I would be teaching and I was starving, and I'd be teaching and I'd be like, I need to eat a meal now. And you can't when you're teaching like a physiology lab or whatever, you can't do that. So it was harder when I was working in a sort of 9 to 5 type job, although lecturing's not really 9 to 5 either. So that's why I think when people have 9 to 5 jobs now, and especially like clients I work with and stuff, I think I have so much respect for people that manage to fit in calorie surplus or not, but meal prepping and training and stuff. Like I'm lucky now, although I'm busy, I still set my own schedule. So it's easier for me to do it. I think it's really hard if you do a normal 9 to 5. I
think you've got to, I train like say 5 days a week, or try and make sure it's at least 5 days a week. But the way I sort of compartmentalize it in my head is it's an extension of my working day. So like if I for example if I finish work at 4:30, well I don't. I finish work at 6:30. Yeah. Because I go to the gym for an hour on. It's easy for me because it's on my way home. But that's just the way I see it in my head. And if I don't do that, I go home and I feel like sort of inadequate, you know what I mean? Like I'll sit there and I'll feel like I'm not tired enough to sleep, and then my brain will just work on overtime. I think you've got to have, in your day at some point, you've got to have some type of physical exertion.
Yeah, our bodies are made to move, right? And we just sit on our arses all day, generally. And we're made to move. And it doesn't have to be the gym. It could be anything. But I'm with you. I think once you get into the routine and your body gets used to doing that much training, it's a lot easier for you to do it. I think starting up, it's really, really hard. And if I'm teaching, say, 9 to 5, sometimes what I still do, to go into the gym after work for me is really hard. I probably just wouldn't do it that day. But because obviously you're in a routine, I think it is a lot easier. But I have so much respect for people like yourself that do that.
The problem as well with the 9 to 5 training sort of thing is that when you are going into gyms at 5:30, 6, it's a ball. It's too busy. If you want to do squats or deads, unless you're in like a mega gym like Loughborough Uni Gym or something, you're inevitably having to wait for ages, aren't you?
And that'll just play into your, like, sometimes if you really don't want to go and you make yourself just get your foot over the door and then it is busy, it's just an extra excuse for you not to train.
Yeah, I've done that before. You walk in and walk out.
Do a circuit and come out.
But one of the things,
circuit.
yeah, exactly that. But I think that one of the things that people, especially people who left, find with training is that it is meditative because it forces you to be present. It forces you in the moment, and so that's why it's so awesome to do it after work or before work to kind of get your mind in the present moment. But when it's that rammed or you're stressed out with other things, it's so hard. And if you're trying to train and be present whilst you're queuing for machines all the time, it's just you lose out on so much of the benefit.
That's spot on. I remember someone told me about football, this was, but someone was a coach years and years ago said, when you're playing football, basically all you have to think about when you're on that pitch for 90 minutes, and it applies to the gym, is what you're doing. And it is in that sense meditative because you're so in the moment, aren't you? Obviously you can get distracted now and again in football and in the gym, but if you do it properly, you do actually, it's one of the most meditative physical things you can probably do, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, obviously we know that like training and exercise consistently improves mental health, and we know that, but I think that's one of the reasons why is because it is quite meditative.
We're just more aware of the concepts like being present now, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly.
It's probably always been a benefit.
Yeah, we've got to be now. We've got to be. I think also sometimes if you've had a really stressful day, you've got to make yourself go. I try and make myself go and do something because it feels like you're sort of channeling that negative energy. I know that's a real cliche, but it does feel like that. So, because otherwise you might go home and then create a bit of an argument with your partner, or your tolerance levels will be a lot lower than what they would be if you sort of went, with a fresh approach and you had that release.
Yeah.
So do you know, do you ever have inquiries from people? You do is it online coaching you do only, or do you do physical stuff like PT stuff as well?
Just online.
Okay. So do you ever have anyone approaching you who's literally starting from scratch? They've never walked in a gym maybe, and if so, how do you approach that?
Yeah, I have quite a few clients like that, and I'll have quite a few clients who have got fear of the gym. So they say I only want to train at home, and so I will always require a certain amount of physical activity, and if it's not the gym, then it's walking or it's a home circuit or something, and it's very phasic. So I'll have some clients. I had a client who actually used to be a student of mine, and then he came on as a client when I finished, and he was too anxious to go to the gym. And so we actually started with him doing home workouts, and then he started buying some dumbbells, and then he bought a squat rack for his house, and he'd been a student, so it wasn't like he was loaded, he just didn't want to go to the gym. And they ended up building like a home gym where I think we worked together for about 8 or 9 months, and over that time he went from just doing like burpees in the house to progressing up to a home gym, and then now he's doing a master's and he's training in a public gym. And I think you have to meet each client where they are, right? You can't just meet somebody and say, right, you're going to go to the gym 5 times a week. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And even people that have been training for 5 years, you don't necessarily say, I want you to train 5 times a week. It's not feasible, or they're too stressed, and so it's pointless training that many times. So you got to meet the client where they are at that point, and sometimes, again, I've got another client who I told her to do 10,000 steps a day because she had a Fitbit, and she threw a drama. She was like, I don't want to do 10,000 steps. And now she's one of my most successful clients in terms of fat loss and mindset and lifestyle and everything. And she does 15 to 16,000 a day naturally.
Oh, wow.
So it's just progression like anything. And getting over the fear of doing it. Everyone starts training and they think that everyone cares what they're doing. And as soon as people realise that nobody cares about you, they're too busy with themselves.
Is that where the anxiety comes from? That people don't want to go to the gym because they feel they're going to be looked at?
Yeah, because they don't know what they're doing. Some people that have never been to the gym are quite happy just to go in and give it a try, and it's awesome. But some people think that they're going to be looked at, but I don't think that's the case anymore. I think actually maybe 5 years ago, especially as women, there were, I would be the only woman in the weights room. Now it's not as common. I don't know what it's like in your gym, but in mine, there's a lot more women in the weights room, so you feel less like everyone's looking at you.
That's a really good point, actually. I think it was like that not so long ago. It would be rare to see a woman lifting, doing compound lifts and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Now it's so common in a relatively short period of time.
Yeah,
I've seen a bit of a swing though. Yeah, recently.
In fact, sometimes if not, certainly in JD gym and the one I train in here, I'd say the ratio must be sometimes more. Yeah, I reckon more girls than lads training.
I think that some gyms though they're improving the layouts to make them more friendly to women because it must be. Well, I've noticed in our gym, for example, it's just the weight area is a bit bigger, and they've got like they're not just putting all the sort of strength and conditioning machines all together.
Oh yeah,
because it must be daunting for a female who's maybe got like yoga pants on or whatever,
Yeah.
and there's a load of testosterone in the corner, and they don't want to walk over. I think gyms are improving that side of things, aren't they?
And I think there's less likely to be female-only gyms, although female-only rooms can be useful for certain religions that don't want to train with men. In general, what I find is that actually it's quite exclusionary of women, because then they feel like that they're odd for being in the mixed part when there's no reason they shouldn't be there. It's like you should be in this girl-only part, which I don't particularly like, but sometimes it's necessary for some people. But that's good that they're changing the layout. Yeah,
I've noticed. So obviously, listen, being healthy is more about nutrition. It's more in the kitchen, isn't it, as we know? So when you're getting those people who are sort of starting from scratch that we just talked about, how hard's the nutrition side of it? Is that harder than getting someone to move and to exercise?
Yes. Yeah. And again, it's about meeting somebody where they're beginning. If somebody comes to me and says, I don't track macros, I don't know what macros are, I don't follow a diet, and they give me a food diary and it's things like I've had cereal for breakfast and I had a sandwich for lunch and pot noodle for dinner, as an extreme example, then that's quite easy in the sense of, you can make really small habits that are really effective in their nutrition. So it might be something like, I want you just to replace your Cocoa Pops in the morning with eggs or another protein snack, and this is kind of examples of protein. And little things like that. Or I want you to change your semi-skim milk to skim milk. And small changes like that can make a huge impact on somebody that's never done anything with their nutrition before at all. And it can help them in terms of knowing what it feels like to be full, knowing what it feels like to be energized from, good quality foods. So those kind of the first transition is quite easy. The harder ones are people actually who have been dieting for a long time or have come from the kind of more bro science side of things, and they've got really odd, obscure rules in their head that they've developed from, rubbish PTs or rubbish coaches. That's harder to kind of break people out of their preconceived ideas of what good nutrition is, and just to let loose a little bit. They tend to be actually harder than people that are just trying to help it from the start.
Have you got an example of, because straight away when you start that bro science, and I'm sure we've all at different times in our life, maybe not you so much, but had those irrational things we just picked up from people in gyms who've told us, and you end up thinking that's a fact. Yeah. Like, can you think of any stinkers along those lines that people have repeated to you?
Yeah, you say I haven't. I've done all the stupid things. I've done like a juice cleanse at some point in my life. I've done really stupid things. So it's not. We've all done it. I had somebody come to me who had a PT who'd given her nutrition advice, and she was told, and this is not actually uncommon in the fitness industry, she'd been told that she couldn't eat carbs and fats together in the same meal because it made her. Because carbs release like insulin, which causes you to it stops fat breakdown basically. But it's in a huge physiological system and it's not a bad thing. And she got told if she ate carbs and fats in the same meal, she'd immediately store the fat, so she couldn't have carbs and fats in the same meal. Keep in mind, by the way, that most of our foods are mixed macronutrients. It's very rare you'll get one food that's just carbohydrate or just fat. She got told that she couldn't have carbohydrates at breakfast. Again, that's so common because people think if you have carbohydrates at breakfast, it stops you from burning fat for the rest of the day, which is rubbish. She got told she couldn't have carbs after 6, like the classic, like don't eat after 6 p.m, which again is
I used
rubbish.
to do that all the time.
Yeah, like that's quite a common one. At the moment, there's no evidence to say, most evidence supports eating in a structure that suits you, so it is beneficial to eat maybe every couple of hours if that's what works for you, and keeping consistent with your routine, but there's no evidence right now that says you shouldn't eat past a certain time, but it's such a common one. There's so many
I used to just not eat carbs late because I don't know, it was just in my head that if you eat carbs late, they'll just sit on you all night.
Yeah, that was
store
so
it straight
common.
away. Yeah.
There's some work being done at the moment. It's called like chrononutrition, and it's to do with the way that your body clock works. And potentially we might be better at digesting food in the morning, potentially, but there's no research there yet. It's something that's potentially getting looked at. So right now it's like eat in a structure that suits you.
So where do you stand on intermittent fasting then?
In terms of fat loss, it's no better for fat loss than normal eating, as in eating when you're hungry. It's a really good way, if you have got a good relationship with food, it's a really good way of condensing your eating window. So just to kind of define, intermittent fasting is basically just eating in a specific window, right? And fasting first. Yeah. And usually people do like an 8-hour window maybe of eating.
That's what I tend to do, 16 and 8.
Yeah, and in terms of your calorie intake and stuff, that's fine. And if that works for you, I can't do it. I wake up in the morning and I'm like, I need to eat right now.
So hungry.
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah.
But you know what though? You get used to it. This is the weird. So I used to love my breakfast. See if we went on holiday, I'd have to find somebody that did full English. Whereas me missus never, she doesn't really eat breakfast. So I'd often sit there eating breakfast, this big giant full English, and she'd sit there with nothing, just with like an orange juice. And I don't like calling it intermittent fasting, by the way. I think there's a lot of terms out there. I just basically skip breakfast now. Yeah. Because the way I see it, I just don't need those calories. I'd rather eat around my workouts.
Yeah, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
That obviously works for you, and that's great. And I think people feel like again, an old school message is that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And as an adult, it's not. Breakfast can be any time. Breakfast can be, I don't know what time you eat your first meal, like 12. There you go. And I think that's still technically breakfast. It's when you break the fast. And the research behind that saying that there you go.
Did you know that one?
Breakfast.
So much in this training, so much.
Yeah, so it's useful. It's useful for some people. The only people really it's not so useful for is people that tend to overeat or eat past like fullness because they get when they get really, really hungry, and then that can potentially be not great for their relationship with food in the sense of they'll be starving, and then as soon as like 12 o'clock hits, they just eat everything because they're so hungry. It would be me too, right? Exactly right, and everyone's different in how they prefer to eat. So for some people it works really well, other people like us, it's like no.
I'm better to just structure it a bit more.
Yeah, me too.
Throughout the day, I think.
Yeah.
I try and stay low carb all the time as well.
Do you?
People often say to me, I've done a lot of research on it, but people often say to me, "Oh, I shouldn't do that."
There's no so again, in terms of fat loss and in health, actually, there's no difference. There's so many research studies that have shown it, and they're like proper metabolic ward studies. So they put people into like chambers basically, and they look at their what fuel they use for moving around, and they look at their body fat and health markers, and there's no difference between low carb and low fat as long as your calories are equal and your protein is matched. Wow. So it's personal preference. The only people for health wise that could potentially benefit from low carb, or like what is a more extreme, so a ketogenic diet, which is high fat, moderate protein, low carb, are people with epilepsy, and there's some research that suggests that people with epilepsy can benefit from that. But other than that, it's preference. It's really preference. So I've got a good friend who has fibromyalgia, which is potentially is linked to her psychology in her brain, and she's keto, and she really, really notices the difference if she eats carbs. In her brain, she gets brain fog, and her kind of feeling of energy and stuff, she really notices the difference. But in healthy people, it doesn't matter. And actually, if you're training, I hate to say it, but if you're training, carbs are actually more beneficial in terms of improving your training intensities. You might actually benefit from having carbs before you're training. You don't have to have them after, but having a high carb meal before you train could potentially mean that you train harder, which increases your energy expenditure, potentially increases your strength progression, therefore increases muscle mass. So you might want to try it.
Yes. I do have a banana occasionally beforehand, but I drink a lot of coffee, so maybe I just don't notice that lull you get from not having carbs.
You probably don't notice it when you've had no carbs for a long time, and so like when I do a competition
you've switched the fuel source to like fat.
Yeah. When I do a competition prep, I will always try and keep carbs close to training, but as soon as I take them out, after a while, I don't really notice so much that I've not had them. But as soon as I kind of finish a show and I start having carbs before training again, I'm like, oh, this is amazing. This is how I'm supposed to feel. So yeah, I think again that's like there's a lot of evidence to say that how hard exercise feels is reduced if you have carbs beforehand.
That's interesting. Do you feel it's almost like a full-time job keeping up with food, nutrition and health training trends, because there's always something new, whether it's
a fad.
I was going to say a fad, like we listen to Joe Rogan a lot, and obviously Jordan Peterson's been on his show a few times. And he, for an extremely intelligent guy, whether you agree with his politics or whatever, he's which don't necessarily, he will bang the drum till kingdom come about. Obviously, the fact that he's just eating meat and he thinks it's cool, it's going to save the world.
Carnivore diet.
But so many people say it's just an exclusion diet. You just
Got to be bad for your colon.
I don't want to say it, but I don't want to. Can I say bollocks?
You absolutely can say
Right,
bollocks.
it's such bollocks, and it's dangerous in the sense of that's being promoted by anecdotal evidence. So people that have done it and say it worked for me, and that might have worked for you, but what was your diet like before you started only eating meat? Like you were probably eating were you eating a lot of processed foods, and what was your vegetable intake like? The carnivore diet, you don't eat vegetables. Like we know, it's kind of one of those facts in nutrition that you can't really debate is that having a varied fruit and vegetable intake is going to improve your health and your longevity. Having a consistent fibre intake is going to improve your health and longevity. And the carnivore diet, I don't even think there's any fibre in it. I'm not sure what the fundamentals are.
It's just animal
protein and fat, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's just like steak and something. It's not great. And so I think those are quite dangerous, especially people that are so outspoken about it.
Unless they're supplementing with fibre and stuff.
Yeah, but then it's not. You're still. If you think about how many micronutrients there are, so we talk about macros all the time, so protein, fat, carbohydrate, but there's so many micronutrients, so fibre, your vitamins, your minerals, iron. Where does that all come from in a diet that you're basically in the same couple of foods all time and time again? There's no evidence that says long term that's going to be beneficial, and I don't think there ever will be, because you're excluding so many food groups. It's awful. But people like him who talk really loud tend to get the most exposure, so there's crap all the time. So you kind of have to keep up with the evidence, but then you also have to keep up with all the bro science and all the trends, so that you can then. I will always have a client, at least once a week, a client will say, what do you think about this? Or I saw somebody on Instagram talk about this, and you have to keep up to date with it so that you can tell them why it's crap, usually.
But the people who commit to extreme exclusion diets like that are often so into it, they want to shout loudest about it, and obviously he's got a big platform, and they want to tell everyone how it's changed the world, because otherwise they've got to justify it somehow.
Yeah.
It annoys me though, the way people are just so willing to ram things down people's throat. It's like militant vegans, it's the same.
Yeah, but this is this is an issue with like nutrition. It's a huge issue in nutrition at the moment, where people attach their identity to their nutrition. Yeah. So you'll see on Instagram all the time, someone in their bio says vegan
and the little grass shoot thing.
Why? Yeah. If that is the most important thing that you have to say about who you are, then question who you are. And then this is the issue. And when people attach their identity to their nutritional status, then they get defensive about it. They shout really loud about it because it's who they are as a person. And that's when people get really emotional and argue about stupid diet trends that are just rubbish, because people are so attached to it as a person. And that's what you've got to fight against every day.
That's so true. I think people who attach their identity to anything, even an occupation, I am this. Yeah. Well, no, it's like, my name's Adam and I do this and this.
Yeah.
Exactly that. It's so, but people can't see it. I remember I put something on my social media once about that, and I said, I said that you are not a vegan, you are not a bodybuilder, you are not, I don't know what it was. And someone really argued with me. He was like, I am a bodybuilder though. I said, no, but that's what you do, but you're you and you're your soul, and you're and you just couldn't grasp the concept. I think speaking to people that actually grasp the concept is great. I just don't think people are necessarily self-aware enough to get to that point.
That's probably a tribal thing though, isn't it? It's probably people wanting to belong to a movement,
gym, if you like, or
maybe.
Yeah. It's not just gym though, is it? It's
society in general, isn't it?
Yeah, people that don't want to look at themselves as a person, so they
want to belong to something.
They want to
belong. A movement or a family.
Yeah.
You said a few times like clients who might be stressed, or they might come to you like wanting validation or wanting your opinion, and it makes me think that as well as being a nutritionist and you're not a PT, but you offer training advice, do you end up automatically for a lot of your clients being a therapist to an extent?
Yeah.
A friend? Is that draining? Is that good? How's that experience?
Yeah, so I did a life coaching diploma like a while ago. I did an extra course to kind of get some help on counselling, because that's basically what you do. Yeah. You are basically a life coach. If you're a good nutrition coach, you're a life coach, because nutrition is actually quite straightforward once you get through all the crap. The actual macros and things like that is quite straightforward. It's behaviour change. It's getting people, for me, it's about getting people to realise that they're worth changing, and a lot of, especially in women now and men as well, but in our culture, we're told to just always be more, right? We're always told to be more, be more. And by definition, that means that how we are right now is not enough.
Yeah.
And it gets ingrained to people that they're not enough, that they're not worth things. And then you tell them then to train or to eat that's going to make them healthier, whether that be fat loss or whatever. They don't see the worth in it because they don't think that they're worth it, and then they get really destructive eating habits. So yeah, a lot of what I do is life coaching, and it is really, really draining, but in a really nice way.
Yeah,
that's why I do it. Like, I'm really,
it's rewarding, isn't it?
Yeah, and you've got to be so empathetic towards people, and so you put a lot of empathy into your clients, and so it's quite like, it's quite draining. I have this necklace on. I don't know if you can see. It's got a stone in it that's like black onyx, and it's all spiritual stuff, but it's all to do with like your energy, and it stops you from picking people's energies up. Because I went to California last year, and my sister-in-law was like, you just take on everyone else's shit, basically, and when your client checks in and really stressed.
So where does your shit go?
Yeah, exactly that. And so that a lot of my work on myself has been, how do I get mine out without the affecting how much I take on from clients? So yeah, it's all about setting boundaries, I think.
And you've read into, so what's it called again?
This is called black onyx.
Yeah.
And it's not sciencey at all. It's very kind of spiritual.
Doesn't mean it doesn't work.
Yeah, for me, it's just like, it just sits here, and it kind of keeps my barriers up, in a sense. Because when I first started coaching, I found it really hard to switch off, and especially when you work online and then you've got clients on social media and then you've got your number.
Of course.
You can be sat at home at 9 o'clock at night, and you might get a message from a client that's a really stressed out message, and it's really hard to kind of say, I really want to help this person, but I need to find my own boundaries and kind of get my own energy back to then give my best to them tomorrow or whatever it is. So yeah, like, I love it though, and I think if you love what you do, you don't mind that situation, as long as you kind of set your boundaries about what's okay and what's not for yourself.
Well, not only are you taking on other people's problems, but you're really putting yourself out there physically and mentally as well. You're sharing a lot on social media, but also I always wonder what it's like, any sort of competition, bodybuilding or bikini class, anything like that. It was bikini that you did, wasn't it? Where you're literally stripping off, basically, and getting people to critique your body.
Yeah.
How does that feel? And how do you
so
stop from being
mentally.
incredibly insecure?
Who is that bulletproof?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you do have to, but I think it teaches you to almost be mentally strong in that way, which is one of the pros of the sport. You kind of, it's hard, and a lot of people can't cope with it because you put maybe 16 weeks of really hard slog into something to spend 20 minutes on a stage to then someone to say, basically, I don't like your body. And because it's subjective, they have certain markers that look for, but it's subjective. So it can be really hard. And I've had a couple of times where I felt really hard done by, and it was really, it makes you feel really crappy, and it makes you go and eat a full pizza and, whatever. But you kind of have to, I taught it, I teach it like a science experiment, and I work with a couple of clients who compete, and I do the same for them that I did for myself. And we say, we're going to test this, we're going to trial this, and let's just see how your body responds. And it's good in a way that you get to teach it. When you teach it like that, people can kind of treat their body as, a machine, and it's a thing that we're working on for a show. But what's the downside of that is that ultimately for health, you want to feel at one with your body, you want to nourish your body, you want to treat it like it deserves. But competing and bodybuilding is the opposite of that. It's slogging out. You're being really hard on your body.
Punishing yourself to an extent, isn't it?
It is. It's totally punishing your body. Really, like, you take it past the point of healthy. So it's really hard, and it's hard, and you can't do it in a compassionate and empathetic way. You have to do it you've just got to keep going, and it's painful and it's horrible, and you just do it because the potential for winning is high, or you get a lot of you learn a lot, because you learn a lot about motivation. You learn a lot about, you have to put so much sacrifice into it and dedication past anything that you've ever done before. I mean, I've not had kids, so I can't comment on that, but it takes a lot. So you learn a lot about yourself, but it's not nice on your body at all.
I can see why you would encourage, or it would be helpful to develop like a disassociation between your body and you, and why that would sometimes not be ideal, because as you said, it's important to have that oneness. But at the same time, surely it's a mental healthy reaction to being like, well, okay, this is this canvas that I've worked on in a science experiment. Judge this, but you're not judging me.
Yeah. But then we come back to the identity thing, right? If someone identifies themselves as a bikini athlete or as a bodybuilder or whatever it is, then if their bodybuilding career is not going well, then they're a crap person because that's their identity. And what happens when that's taken away? Who even are you anymore and what are you doing? And that's the type of person that really struggles when they compete and then they stop. Or when they do any sort of extreme sport and they
footballers,
stop.
rugby players,
yeah. Because they don't know where they are, who they are, what they're doing. And then they just kind of fall into a state of not a great mental place and potentially, especially in bodybuilding, a really bad way with eating and training because they don't know how to cope with it anymore.
You were telling us before we started recording, like, you're very modest, but you were good. Like, you got to right up there. When you tell us a bit about...
Yeah, I competed for like 4.5 years and I finished second in Britain. So that was 2 years ago. So yeah, and I worked really hard and I prepped myself and I coached myself. So there's a lot of politics in bodybuilding and people who are prepped by certain people and work in certain gyms and you know they tend to succeed.
Really?
And so that's
interesting.
Yeah, and they can be as fair as you want, but ultimately because it's subjective, there's always a bit of that. So I'd kind of come from prepping myself. I'd been in the middle of nowhere, and so it was really great for me to get to that point. But I came second. I competed for Britain and I had a really good year. I won a couple of my shows. Like I did Body Power, which is like a big fitness event, and I won that and I'd done really well. And then it was really close, so they said it could have been first or second. But the girl who came first was almost 10 years younger than me, and she's a good friend now actually. But she had more muscle mass than I did, and she's 10 years younger than me, and she's been lifting since she was a teenager, like a late teenager. And that's kind of the way that it is now in the sport. And especially in my class, a lot of the women are in their 20s, like early 20s, or even mid to late 20s, and they've been training for 10 years. And some of them, and a lot of them, if they're at pro level, are taking anabolic steroids or whatever they're taking to assist them. And I was natural and I was 31. And I just couldn't, I knew that at that point I'd have to take drugs to
catch up.
And it's not, and I don't have an opinion on it particularly. I don't do it. I don't have clients that do it. It's not for me. So I kind of just thought I'm just gonna bow out now and finish second in Britain, and I'm good with that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be, there's masters classes for women who are 35 and up. And I don't want to be doing that. The toll that it takes on your body and your hormones and your physiological functions is not what I want to be doing when I'm in my late 30s. For me.
I think you can see why we live in an age of instant gratification, don't we? Yeah. And you can see why that would tie in very nicely with taking steads, can't you?
Yeah.
Because it's like I can get there very quickly, or I can put in blood and guts, eat right, bulk in the winter, get lean in the summer or whatever, and train, and it'll take me 10 years, or I can do this and I can maybe look half as good in 6 months' time or something like that.
And of course the best bodybuilders in the world and the best bodybuilders in the UK do all of that plus that. So of course they do it all, and it doesn't take away from the work that they do. But there is evidence that shows that if you do, there was a study done and it looked at men who took testosterone and then men who trained and then men who took testosterone and trained. And obviously the people that did testosterone and trained got the most muscle and strength gains in, I think it was 12 weeks. But the people that took testosterone but didn't train gained more muscle mass than the people that trained didn't take testosterone.
No way.
I think I've seen the studies.
Yeah,
because is it not right about it has that much of an effect that even like carrying shopping, for example, will have a huge
anabolic.
Wow.
So of course you need to do all, you have to do it all.
Take steroids, kids.
Don't do it. We won't talk about long-term problems, but it does work.
I think people
obviously it works.
I think people should have a choice though. I think.
Yeah.
I think I genuinely believe in everything. This goes for like a lot of drugs, cannabis, and that as well. Like I think just prohibition doesn't work. Like you should be giving people all of the information and allowing them to make the mind up rather than like making the mind up for them.
Yeah, I think obviously there's certain exclusions to that.
Yeah.
And I don't promote, especially steroid use in general is not great for health, right? That's really not. You get some bodybuilders who are, I say, careful and educated on it, and I know some people like that, and they're very well educated on it, and they do what they can to be smart with it. But ultimately, you're still putting, exogenous hormones into your body or whatever it is, and that's just not for, you know, it depends on what you value. If you value your health in any way, you know, you're probably not going to do that. But if you value external gratification, you value your being an athlete, or I don't know, you value aesthetics, then you might do that, and that's your prerogative, especially in the sport. You know, I understand it. I wouldn't do it, but I understand it.
Yeah, it's not for me, like.
But at the elite level, is it almost, you know, is it a bit like the Tour de France with
of course it is.
Lance Armstrong, where it's like, if you're not doing it, you're the outlier?
Yeah, I think so. It's men, yeah, and women. There are females who are natural. There are. I don't know. I don't know. Women are less open about it, but I think that in this day and age, you know, people from the outside need to be aware that a lot of girls do it as well. Even the ones that look gorgeous, pretty, they don't look manly in any way at all, they could still well be on certain drugs that improve their muscle mass and still make them look feminine as such.
Do you know were you in a weight class when you were doing it?
No, so I have no weight class.
There's no weight
women.
class. But it was like, what's the aesthetic that they want to see? Because it's obviously bikini, so the same as a male bodybuilder in the trunks.
Yeah.
I want to see as much as of your physique as they can.
Yeah.
But at the same time, is it all about mass, or is it all about definition? Or
they have maybe 5 things that they're looking for, and they kind of tick you off for how many of those things you've got.
Yeah.
And it depends on the federation. So the one that I went with liked quite a lot of muscle mass on women, and that tends to be the way that it's going. So they go for muscle mass. They go for bikini is about shape and presentation. So they want you to have broad shoulders, big glutes, and a small waist. So it's very much about the shape, which is why a lot of bikini athletes have got fake boobs and stuff like that, because it makes their shape look like.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Are breast implants prevalent in that because it improves
massively,
the look?
Massively,
Oh,
yeah. No pun intended. So shape, they want condition, so how lean you are, but you can't be too lean. Bikini started off as like a beach body look, but it's not beach body anymore. So the original bikini competitors were not overly lean. Yeah. It's just the way that it's progressed. But then they also look at face, how pretty you are, your hair.
No way.
How you present yourself, what your bikini's like.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's meant to be kind of, it's like the mild Barbie type version of bodybuilding.
Elements of beauty contest-ish.
Yeah, my mum hated it. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. So what did your nearest and dearest think when you were doing that?
So they didn't really like it. My little brother hated it. He watched some sort of documentary on bodybuilding, and it was really seedy, and he hated it. But they kind of saw over the years how much it supported me in terms of, I didn't have the best relationship with food before I competed, and actually competing triggered a lot of it to be worse. But actually, as a result, long term, my eating habits and my education around food, and along obviously side my education itself, progressed into a really good place. So they actually saw what it did in terms of my confidence. I'm naturally really shy, and it helped bring out me and my confidence, and so they saw it for what it was for me. But they're obviously, they were aware of the dark side. My mum kind of came to the shows. She'd bring her like Kindle, and she'd read, and then when I came on, she'd cheer, and then she'd hurry up and get out of there. So she supported me because she's my mum and she's awesome, but she didn't particularly like it.
When you say you're naturally really shy, and I know people who are shy can compel themselves to do extrovert things, but was there one moment when you thought, right, I'm no longer shy? And was that standing there in your bikini, flexing, whatever you had to do, having people looking up at you, judging you?
It made a big difference. It did make a big difference. Do you know what? Yeah. For me, I was always really shy and didn't have any confidence. And then I did my undergrad degree, and I got so anxious around like my exams and studying. I got really underweight, and I was so anxious that I messed up my exams. And I was supposed to get a first, and I was the only one in my class, and I got a 2-1 because I just messed up my exams. And of course, I was happy with that, and it's all fine. But it was a result of me being such an anxious, unconfident mess, basically. And at that point, I just thought, I can't actually continue to do anything in my life if this is who I am. And so I took a year off I took a year away from uni. I was a PT. I used to teach exercise classes, and I did everything that I thought was horrendous to try and get over it. And that kind of pushed me. And then I went to uni that I didn't know anyone, and I just kind of just tried to keep saying yes to everything, and then I fell into competing. So competing kind of pushed me over the edge and kind of made me realise I was okay. But it took, I think I don't know if you guys have ever had it, but if you're not confident, you have to put the work into it to get out of it. Otherwise, you're just going to throw away so many opportunities.
Oh, completely, yeah.
Do you think you can be confident? Do you think, like, if you're not feeling confident, you can take active steps to feel confident?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's like you said, it is fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Like I still get nervous for certain things, and you just have to. I do things like I have my own practices, like I'll do my breathing technique, or I'll do meditation. Make sure I do those things in a.
So what's your breathing technique?
It's really like a grounding technique. So if I'm in the middle of a room of people, you can't really do a full meditation session. I did do it in Starbucks the other day, but you just go literally put my earphones in. And I'm like, sorry. And you just literally breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, and breathe out for 4 seconds, and that kind of a quality of time in, time out helps to kind of ground you, just bring you back to where you are if your mind's running away with you. So I tend to do it with, like, if I'm doing talks and stuff, I get people to do it.
I've heard that before, but for like 7 seconds.
Yeah.
Wim Hof does a breathing method which is very similar to that, and it's just in for a certain amount. I don't know if it's 4-4-4, but when you do it, and I think he says do it 30 times.
Yeah.
Do notice a difference.
Even if you do it once, twice, though, there's a mindfulness about it, isn't there?
Yeah,
because you don't realise, probably not you, but how ineffectively sometimes we can breathe, especially when you're feeling stressed, and just focusing on that and then trying to like breathe normally makes a big
get yourself back in the zone.
That's exactly it, right? It just brings you back to the moment that you're in, because so many times the voices in our head are just off on one. So when you're nervous, they're like, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, and it's crap in your head. But if you just do like a simple breathing,
it's always negative.
It's always negative.
It's never going.
I know
these great things are going to happen today.
That's so true.
You've got to plant them better.
Do you think some people just naturally have that inbuilt, like where the voice in their head's really positive, going, "Hey, you look great today.
I bet there are people
good thing is going to happen to you."
Don't know.
Good on them.
I know.
Listen to those motivational. Listen to motivational tapes in the car. You are brilliant.
Is this the point of the podcast where we mention Gary Vee again?
Yeah, do you like him?
He's been seeing.
I'm a big fan of him, you know. Yeah.
You've been seeing him?
Yeah.
He's just different to what's out there in his field. Obviously, he runs a big media company. Started off with a liquor store, a wine shop. Built it into like a multi-million-pound company. But yeah, as I say, he talks a lot about the journey, and he just, I don't know, there's a lot of emphasis on focusing on your weaknesses and trying to make them better. He says, no, fuck that. Double down, triple down on your strengths, which is great, isn't it?
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
You mentioned wine there. We deliberately didn't have wine this week, and we were talking through it, and you were like, I would have had wine.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
it was but what you were saying was interesting, and it's just like, it's everything in moderation, isn't it? And actually, I don't want to get this on the record, red wine's really good for you, right?
Yeah, everything in moderation. Exclusion, I think, in nutrition is one of the worst kind of concepts because it makes you want it more. Psychologically. If you say you're not going to have wine, you want wine, but also it just demonizes it, and as soon as you start demonizing food groups, then it creates a really unhealthy relationship with it, and you attach guilt to it, and then you just kind of get into a really bad cycle with it. Everything in moderation, and like I said, the Mediterranean diet is like one of the healthiest diets for heart health and cardiovascular health ever, and that includes a moderate amount of red wine.
Define moderate. It's different for everyone.
Well, I mean, that's not the basis of the diet. There's lots of other things about it that make it healthful.
What practical advice can you give to people who, like, let's face it, you know, you're not going to just not drink. Like, for the most part, you know, it's great people who don't, but especially in summer, you know, you got the tunes on, it's sunny, but you're trying to stay lean because you've got a holiday coming up. Is there a good alcohol that you could maybe have as a go-to?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a couple of things around. Drinking alcohol doesn't make you fat, right? There's a couple of things around it. So the first thing is having a spirit and a low-calorie mixer is so easy to do. So gin, tequila is my favourite one. Vodka, a spirit with a low-calorie mixer is probably going to be about 60 to 80 calories. Whereas if you have a glass of wine, and I'm talking like if you go to a pub and get a small glass of wine, it's about 120 calories. But if you have a home glass of wine, it's not 120 calories, it's more likely 250. And you kind of lie to yourself. If you have a big wine glass and just pour it in, 250 calories versus 8. Yeah, exactly, right?
Adam and Greg shift uncomfortably in the seat.
Which is fine if you're having a glass of wine with dinner or whatever. That's completely fine. But you should get one of those things as well. If you do it often, you should get one of the wine glass measures.
Yeah, yeah.
And see, actually, pour yourself a glass of wine and then pour it into one and see actually how many glasses you have. Because 125 mils is about 115 calories.
Wowza. Is vodka, lime and soda a good shout then?
Yeah, but
if you're getting real lime, not the cordial.
Yeah, that's good. The issue as well is in pubs and stuff, the only diet drinks they have is Diet Coke, which is not great with a lot of things. But then it's like everything that you have around it. So it's not just like if you had 5 drinks, right, in a day, and it was spirit and mixer, that's going to be 5 times 7, 350 calories to 400 calories, right? So that's fine. But then you're like, oh, I've had 5 drinks. Oh, I really want a takeaway, or I really want a kebab, and then you have maybe 1,500 calories from the kebab shop, and then the next day you're hungover, and then so you think I'm going to maybe just get a pizza, and that's where it's not an issue. But if you're doing that every week, it's not drinking that makes you gain body fat. It's all the stuff around it, and you can do things like having things that you want to eat when you get home. So like cereal after night out was awesome because it tastes good, and it's a third of the calories of a takeaway, and little things like that you can do will all add up. But you can definitely do it. Like I drink, not all the time, but I do drink.
So when you're competing, right? I guess that's one extreme to another. When you're bulking, it's calorie surplus. When you're cutting, it's calorie deficit, and you're hardly eating anything, and you're trying to deal with the hunger and blah blah blah. But what lessons have you taken from those days to now? Have you managed to find a healthy balance, or do you still sort of weave in and out of being lean and being?
I kind of go up and down, but it's just goes on my hunger. So I don't track my food anymore. I don't know how many calories I eat every day. I know roughly because I'm a nutritionist. I can't really switch it off, but I don't, when I'm prepping. So when
you still read the back of everything that you eat?
Nothing.
No? Oh, that's good.
No, they hardly ever. I went out for dinner the other day with 5 bodybuilders and all of them were checking the macros, and I was just sat like, I'm just going to eat this. I don't really care. And I was the only one that wasn't. But no, I don't. When you're competing, you weigh everything meticulously. You don't use a teaspoon. You use scales, right? You don't do anything that's slightly off the gram. Whereas now I eat according to hunger. I have certain guidelines that I use in my head. I know what a serving of protein looks like, so I'll have that at every meal, and that's kind of it. I eat to hunger. Competing taught me what hunger was. I think we think that we get hungry sometimes, but we don't. How many times in our lives are we really hungry? Yeah, we're bored or we're stressed or we're sad, and we just eat because we think that that's what we should do, and we're not eating to hunger. And competing or any extreme diet, and it's not even just competing, switches off your kind of ability to tune into your hunger. Because whereas if you're trying to maintain weight, you should really be trying to focus on listening to your hunger cues. When you're dieting, you're going to be hungry and you have to ignore those cues. So it's like the opposite of what we're supposed to do to maintain weight. So it taught me a lot, but I don't use any of those kind of methods anymore. And I don't weigh myself anymore, but I'll be lean some days. Some days I'll wake up lean, some days I won't. It's just the body. And you just kind of move on with it because it doesn't matter, really.
Is it? I suspect the answer to this is like obviously yes, but is it a massive extra challenge for a female bodybuilder around menstruation and the period? Because that's something that we just don't have to deal with, do we? Yeah. And does that make you want to eat in a contrary way to actually competition bodybuilder?
Yeah. So when you go through your luteal phase of your period, so like just say 7 to 10 days before your period, your metabolic rate potentially will go up by about 100 to 150 calories based on metabolic rate. So you will feel hungrier. Like you will. I hit the same day of my cycle every month, and I know what day it is because I wake up and I'm like, I'm absolutely bottomless. I'm starving. I'm looking at these protein bars in front of me like, I'm starving. And so yeah, it does happen. Not all women will notice it. So when you're in a deficit, so when you're dieting or competing, you're hungry all the time, but then you might be really, really hungry on those days. And when you're competing, you don't give yourself that leeway to have those extra calories. If you're doing like a lifestyle diet and you just want to get leaner, then just say to yourself, maybe if that happens to you the week before your period, say, right, I'm going to have a bagel thin, or I'm going to have an extra egg or whatever it is, just to tide me over because I'm hungrier and I'm burning a bit more energy. And that's fine. You're still going to be in the same deficit. So yeah, it does really throw you off. But then what happens when you get very lean is that's your cycle stops a lot of the time. So you stop menstruating, and and that's one of the issues. That's one of the reasons I won't compete as I'm getting older.
Yeah.
I want my hormones to be healthy, and it can take months for it to come back. Because
is that because your body's not getting what it needs nutritionally?
Yeah, you have like this certain level of energy intake that you can. It's like a level. It's called energy availability, and what that means is the amount of energy that's left over for basic physiological functions after you've exercised and after you've done all your daily activities. And what happens is, in a normal person, you've got a certain amount that's left, and you can do all these things. But when you're in a deficit for so long, you don't have those things anymore. So your energy intake's lower. You spend a lot of energy and then you've got nothing left. So you stop your basic functions, including your period. And that's obviously for long term, that's really bad for your health. Combined with the fact that your body fat is low, can also impact your period. And then you're under a lot of stress. And so you can get a lack of period from the stress response. So all combined, competing or extreme dieting can be really detrimental to that. So you don't have to worry about the kind of hunger side of it as much anymore because you don't have that going on. But that's also not a good sign either. Yeah.
So I want to talk about veganism, right? Because I have a discussion with a vegan who's not too far away from us here, our producer David, and we had when he first moved on to that diet, I was saying to him, because we both go and lift weights 4 or 5 times a week, and I was saying to him, listen, you need animal protein. It's just, for me, from what I've read anyway, plant protein just doesn't cut it. Is that true?
So you don't need animal protein. So there's a few. So basically, the way protein works is that I can't see his face. The way that protein
it's very
works
happy
is that you have complete protein sources and incomplete protein sources. Complete protein sources means that the protein that you have contains all of the essential amino acids that you have to get from your diet. So essential amino acids you can't make for yourself, so you have to get them from your diet. This isn't just for muscle building. This is for any protein requirements in the body. And your sources of complete protein are meat, fish, soy and dairy. So they're your main sources. So the issue obviously with veganism especially is that you've cut out most of those, and so you're really limited in terms of getting complete protein sources. Vegetarians is a bit easier, or pescatarians a bit easier because you still have fish and dairy. But with vegetarian proteins you can combine one. So most vegetarian plant-based proteins are incomplete, so they have some essential amino acids but not all of them. So things like beans and rice, for example, you have to combine to get your essential amino acids from one and the other essential amino acids from another. Okay. And you can do it. The issue then with that is, it's not an issue as such, but plant-based proteins tend to have higher carb intakes associated with them. And so you tend to have to, something like chickpeas, for example, or lentils, you have to have a lot more to get the amount of protein that you'd want. For muscle building, there's a certain amount of protein that you want in each meal to kind of maximize muscle building, which is like between maybe 25 to 35 grams, depending on your body size. And that's
per meal.
Per meal.
Yeah.
And so you can get that from, a large chicken breast or 200 grams of yogurt, but to get it from vegetarian sources, you're going to have to eat
shitloads of lentils.
That's a lot of lentils, or beans, rice combined. It's a lot more calories. And so things like soy, things like, if you can have dairy is awesome.
Soy, though, I've read some controversial stuff about soy and how it affects you hormonally.
Yeah, that's
there's a term being coined now. It's soy boys.
Oh my
Is
god!
that?
Yeah.
Oh my god! I've not heard of that one.
Yeah, because it affects your production of estrogen and obviously the balance between that and testosterone.
I think that the evidence behind that is not great, in the sense of I think you have to overdo it a lot to and I don't think that you actually grow like just. I'm assuming that's coming from growing like breast tissue. Is that what the implication
I don't know.
is?
I just think men need testosterone, don't they? And I think
But you can still
anything that affects that balance can't be good for you.
I think it's very, very minimal. If anything, my knowledge on that actually is not huge, but I think it's very minimal. If anything, I don't think it's a concern. For vegetarian men.
You mentioned amino acids before, and I'd be interested. I'm sure people watching and listening would be. You still train, smashing it. What supplements do you take going about your, I guess, protein? Yeah. Do you take creatine, BCAAs? Yeah. What sort of things do you use?
So I take, obviously, whey protein always, or casein protein every day because I like it. You don't have to have it, but it's a really easy way to add up protein in your diet. So I have protein powder, I have creatine every day, creatine monohydrate. Again, it's a recommendation that I would make to most people. It's the only kind of scientifically backed supplement for muscle building and muscle maintenance. It's also good if you're out of the gym for a while. So I'm not training at the moment because I've just had surgery. So I keep it in because it's helping maintains muscle. It improves strength and it improves power. Some people, you can be a non-responder. So some people don't respond to it, but you don't know that. It's worth taking. And
you might
it's
have a
cheap.
placebo effect anyway.
Exactly that. Exactly that. Right?
Do you cycle that then, or do you do that year round?
No, so you don't need to cycle it. I think that came from some bros somewhere in the gym, but you don't have to cycle creatine. And actually, the way creatine works is that you can load it. So you want to saturate your muscles with it, and you can load it over 5 days, or you can just start taking it, and over 28 days you've loaded it. So you don't want to come off it because it depletes your muscles of it. And that's, people think it's bad, but you make creatine in your body and you store creatine in your body naturally, so it's not a bad thing. But also, actually, creatine's been shown to potentially improve like cognitive function. So I know there's some sports scientists that give it to like their kids because it can improve their cognitive function. So, and like I said, it's natural. So
is that related to creatinine in your body then?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right,
like
I used to Dr. Latham in the house. Didn't realise it was such a steam company.
No, I used to take that all the time, and then I stopped because I just felt like it was bloating me, and then I read that it does bloat you, and that just kind of stayed in my head.
Yeah. Yourself of it. No, so we basically store phosphocreatine in our muscles, and we break it down to produce creatine. And so if we supplement with creatine, it increases our stores of phosphocreatine. Then we can break more of it down to produce energy. So, yeah.
So what else? What else are me and Greg rushing to the shop to buy after this
Because
episode?
we're getting stuck upon BCAAs to take amino acids.
BCAAs are useless.
Whoa.
Totally useless.
Interesting, okay.
And also a waste of calories. People think that they don't have any calories.
Have they got calories in?
I was actually having this discussion yesterday with somebody, another coach, because actually, so I've always just counted them as 4 calories per gram like protein, but actually, because they have a higher concentration of essential amino acids, BCAAs, well, they are essential amino acids, the essential amino acids, some of them have actually got a higher calorie content than normal protein, so they potentially might be 6 calories per gram. So if you're pounding BCAAs, you're just drinking calories. But if your protein throughout the day is optimal, then it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter.
That's a no from you.
Yeah, definitely a waste of money, like complete waste of money. They're the most overhyped supplement. Yeah, and they're just and people will drink them because they like the taste. It's like, just drink squash.
I believe most of them are made out of human hair as well. Have you read that?
No, and I don't think that can't be true.
Oh, but that's what
Bro science. Call them bro science.
That's not bro science. I've read that in many places. It's good, reliable sources.
Nah.
Yeah.
Name your sources.
No, I have. That's where they get it from. They get it from hair.
Bullshit.
That can't be true. Because I think they take it from whey protein. Because whey protein's broken down from milk.
Oh, okay.
Well, not broken down from milk, but it's part of milk.
Oh, we're debunking all the bro science, aren't we?
What else is bro? So other supplements I take is omega-3 because I don't eat a lot of oily fish. So if you're not having 2 to 3 servings of oily fish a week, then omega-3 supplementation can be beneficial for just overall health.
Heart health and cognitive as well, isn't it? I believe, yeah.
Yep.
But didn't the study kind of debunk? I mean, it's like it always goes at this. But didn't the study come out semi-recently that said, or maybe it was cod liver oil actually, that just said on a long-term research study it wasn't proved to make any difference?
Cod liver oil is slightly different in terms of the ratio of omega-3 to omega-6. Okay. So omega-3 is really, it's an essential fatty acid. So again, like essential amino acids, we can't make essential fatty acids. We need to get them from our diet, but we just don't eat a lot of kind of foods rich in omega-3. So things like walnuts, seeds, oily fish, mackerel, salmon, etc.
So don't eat enough of that. You need to.
Yeah, you don't need to, but I recommend it. Vitamin D is really useful. So in the UK,
in the north of England in particular,
if you between the months of October and April in the UK, the way that the sun is, it doesn't matter if it's sunny, you don't get vitamin D from the sun, and that's 95% of our vitamin D comes from sunlight. So and the vitamin D is so important for overall health, for our bones. And so vitamin D I would always take in those months. And then April to October, if you're out in the sun for 20 to 30 minutes without sunscreen, then you don't need it. But if you're in work all day, or you wear sunscreen all the time, then you're not getting vitamin D. So vitamin D is a really useful supplement too. I think that's really it, is it? If I'm hormonal, I take certain supplements that support my hormone function, but that's it. So there's
what do you take for that?
couple of different things. So I get really bad PMS symptoms, really bad in the last year or so. And so there's one supplement that I take called chasteberry, which is like a plant-based supplement.
Okay.
That helps with management of PMS symptoms. But it's not got a huge evidence base behind it yet, so it's not something that I like a blanket recommend. And it's also quite strong, and it can interfere with antidepressants and things. So it's not something that you can just take. It's something that you have to do some research into, but it's potentially beneficial.
Have you, speaking of evidence-based, have you got a take on CBD supplements?
I don't have a big take on it, to be honest. I think so. From what I know, the supplements that are available, over the counter in the UK are not.
It's very low, isn't it?
Yeah, they're very low, and they're not of the kind of grade
CBD,
that you want.
A lot of them are hemp. Hemp seeds, and it's not the same.
Majority on Amazon are, but you can. I think Holland do Holland and Barrett's marketing. I'm sure they're not going to worry about the thing. But nevertheless, the actual CBD in a lot of it
way
is
too low to have any
residual
effect.
levels. But I don't know. I just wondered if you had a take on it in general, because
Not
it's being
really.
sold as a health supplement now, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, it's not something that I mean, I've got friends that use it and use kind of high grade stuff and swear by it, and I've got a brother who has chronic pain, and he smokes weed, and he says it really helps his pain management, but that's all anecdotal. And there's not enough evidence, like from an evidence-based nutritionist point of view, there's no evidence that supports it in terms of anything that I would need it for at this point. So it's not something I would ever recommend, but I've not got any personal experience with it, so I don't have a comment on it. Do you guys use it or no?
I did.
No.
Yeah.
What for? Sleep?
Actually, yeah, that was what appealed to me about various things I read about it, and then I think it was from Rogan. Spoke a lot about it in one episode. I can't remember which one it was. So I got some from Holland and Barrett, and it was, like you say, it wasn't just hemp, it was proper CBD, but very low. And
I think the thing is though,
it's mega expensive,
Yeah, and if they're talking about this stuff in America and then we're trying to get it here, it's just not the same. You can basically get whatever you want in America if you know a good doctor, like.
Yeah.
So,
I noticed no difference in terms of. I think if there was anything, it would have been just a placebo thing.
Yeah. I know, like my brother and his wife live in the States. She's Californian, and her grandma was diagnosed. Had terminal cancer, and she got prescribed cannabis through Californian government, and it really helped her pain. So one of the things that really helped her pain. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I think it will change a bit in the UK soon, but I don't know about it.
We're open. You were the one who told me about melatonin.
Yeah.
And you take for a period.
I always have it.
Yeah.
I always have it in ours. I don't take it all the time. I don't know. I've got this weird thing. I mentioned creatine before. Like I don't like to depend on something. But I do always keep a stock of melatonin. Just for if it's been a particularly stressful day, my brain's one of them things that's constantly working overtime and questioning what I'm doing. What am I doing tomorrow? What do I need to do? Have I done that? All that type of stuff.
Lists on your phone all the time.
All the time, yeah. So yeah, I keep a little stock of melatonin. I just have a little 3 milligram tablet if I feel like I might not, slip off as easy going to bed. Likewise, I take ZMA as well for similar reasons.
ZMA is a really funny one, because actually, evidence-wise, there's no evidence that says it helps sleep, but anecdotally, it's one of the most successful sleep supplements. And
is that right?
Yeah, it's just I don't know why. There's just the evidence is not there, but people seem to really benefit from it.
Yeah, well, it's zinc and magnesium in it, and I notice when I take it, like my nails grow and stuff like that quicker.
Yeah, so it's not a harmful supplement in any way.
Yeah,
melatonin can be useful if you're got disturbed sleep. It's just that.
Well, they prescribe that all the time to very young children, like sleep apnea and stuff like that.
Melatonin.
Yeah, it definitely works. Because with what they say is, this is the reason I got it. Although everyone says there's advice out there which says don't take your phone to bed. Well, everyone does it, don't they? Leave your phone in a different room. Well, no, because my alarm's on it, mate. And I've got to check social media. The last thing to do and the first thing I do tomorrow. But now, but they say that looking at the light that is emitted from your screen stops you from secreting melatonin yourself.
Yeah, and iPhones now, especially, or I think most Androids probably, you can turn your blue light screen on, and I do recommend anyone does that. I will always try and do that before I get home or when I have my dinner or something.
Turn it off.
Yeah, turn the blue light off. So that it stops that from happening. And
you can get it to do it automatically. Mine comes on from 10 till 6.
Oh, that's clever.
Automatically dims. Yeah.
Oh, maybe I'll do that. But then you can get like blue light blocker glasses and stuff like that. And I know in the fitness industry, people love those right now, and they do, I think, work.
Yeah.
But they're kind of for if you really have trouble sleeping, or if you really need to recover and you're in that extreme sense. Most of us, if you've got a good quality sleep normally, then you're fine. You obviously struggle with it a bit, so it makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely works, especially the melatonin, like 100%. Just nod off. Just, if you're reading a book or something, just feel yourself nodding off, and it's great. I'd highly recommend it.
I recommend meditation at night instead. Does the
So
same thing.
it's a funny one, meditation, isn't it? Because a lot of people, I don't meditate, but I think I should. I've got a stressful job at times. But to a lot of people, as soon as you just mention meditation, in my head I've got someone sat there like that. But you can do it anywhere, can't you? Really?
Yeah. And obviously we've spoken about the gym being quite meditative, but the whole premise of it is that it just brings you back to the present moment and not kind of distracted by things, and you don't have to be really airy-fairy. And I spent 3 months in California last year, and what I really noticed, I went to meditation class every single day. And what was really cool over there is that you go to meditation class in LA, and the people there are like businessmen and women that have just come from work, or their families, or whatever it is. And you might get one person that doesn't use conditioner, but here it's like this kind of mindset of people that are there are all going to be vegan, and they don't use conditioner in their hair, and they all smell of incense, and it's not like that at all. It's so beneficial for, stress reduction, potentially pain management, anxiety reduction. I use it a lot in terms of mindfulness around eating. It improves your compassion towards yourself. It's just, it improves your kind of ability to stay calm in stressful situations. So it's not necessarily what happens at the time, in the sense of you might not feel that calm at the time when you're doing it, but if you're consistent with it, you'll find that the way that you manage situations is a lot easier. And if you're an anxious person, for example, you kind of can deal with those types of stressful situations a lot more calmly. So it is really, really great, and it does, if you do it at night time before you go to sleep, it's really beneficial to help you sleep.
I use Headspace, and I think what we were saying in the podcast last week, it's, for me, guided meditation is because I had no concept of where to start, really. And it's been incredibly helpful. It's frustrating because it is definitely a skill.
Yeah.
And unless I'm able to be consistent, well, not able to be, of course I can be, but unless I am consistent and do it on the daily, when I can feel genuine improvement, it's a bit stop-start at the moment. So I feel like I've got the basic benefits, which are amazing. And I feel like if I can just apply it a bit more, maybe I can sort of move through the packs and move up a level, if you like. Yeah,
guided meditations are awesome. I still do guided meditations most days. And the apps are awesome. So there's Headspace, Calm, Unplug is the one that I use. There's loads of different ones. But yeah, I think if you can be consistent, even if you do, rather than trying to just do it every single day, but just doing consistently, say if I'm going to do 4 days a week for the next month, then that's still consistent, spread out throughout the week, rather than trying to do it every single day, because
Starbucks.
What's your technique then, and how long are you doing this for?
So I use a guided meditation, and so I'll do it every single day. I got back from Cali, and I was like, I'm going to do it every single day, and I've done it every day for a year, which I don't know how I've managed to do that, but I usually do a minimum of 10 minutes a day, and I'll usually do that minimum before bed, unless I've been out or something. I'll make sure to do it earlier in the day. And if I know that I'm having a really stressful week, or if I've got a big thing on that day, then I'll do one in the morning, and I'll do one at night as well. And I'm lucky, I've got a kind of box room in my house that I have all my meditation stuff in. I've got a cushion and candles and stuff. You don't need
Buddha
that.
in the corner.
Do I? I actually do have
Himalayan
Buddha.
salt lamp.
Yeah, I do have a Himalayan salt lamp. That's next to my bed. Well done. But you don't need any of that stuff, obviously. Guided meditations are great, and they literally talk you through it. They they tell you exactly what to do. And I think people think that they're crap at meditation because their mind is too busy and it wanders, but that's the point. And that ability to sit and for your mind to wander and for you to keep bringing it back is such a skill, because that's one of the issues that we have in daily life. It's like we were talking about earlier, when your voices in your head run away with you and create all these negative situations. But meditation teaches you to kind of listen to those thoughts and then just kind of say, right, come back to now. And if you can start doing that in your daily life, then the stress that you have is going to be so much less than what it normally is, because a lot of the stress comes from just what you tell yourself.
that's definitely, I agree with that. And one most profound sort of like, it's a basic realization, but not one that I think enough people can grasp. Certainly I didn't, and sometimes still don't, is that you're fundamentally not your thoughts, because you can live in your head. You can begin to believe
so true
that your thoughts are you.
Yeah.
And they're not. They're just things that can pass right through. You don't have to follow them, do you?
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the most powerful realization anyone can have. And it's about, you're not your thoughts, right? But it's like that, all the thoughts are like your ego. And there's a guy, I don't know if you've ever heard of Eckhart Tolle. He is a spiritual type writer, and he talks a lot about your ego and yourself. And people get them confused. And if you live from your ego, so your ego is the thoughts in your head and all of external gratification and things like that, that's where you're more stressed and you have more issues. But if you live from a place of knowing that yourself is the person inside, listening to all the thoughts, you're a lot calmer, and you realise you can switch them off. And like with my clients who have issues maybe around food, they constantly are thinking about what they're going to eat, or they constantly are thinking about what they've already eaten. And for them to just go, oh, actually, I can just say, stop thinking about that and move on. It's like such an amazing realization. And like you said, you can do it with anything in life once you master that art of just being like, just shush.
So the meditation helps you come into control and maybe recognise when your thoughts are starting to run away with you, and you can just pull yourself back in line.
Exactly.
I have an issue sometimes with constantly thinking about the next thing. And to the detriment of the current moment. Sometimes I'll be having a conversation with someone and I'm thinking, and I'm planning something that might be happening later that day or tomorrow, and sometimes I have to just go, hang on,
be here,
be in the moment, put your phone away, stop making lists.
I know, but you can't help it sometimes, and it does happen to everyone, but meditation does help with that. It really does. It helps you just be present, which is so important, because life is short.
Next week we'll have Joss Sticks, bit of Himalayan salt lamb. We'll just meditate for the whole hour.
Yeah. I'll come back.
Won't condition our hair. Turn vegan? No chance.
Too far.
Absolutely no chance. Do you know, you spend a lot of time on social media. We talked a lot about this in last week's episode. But you also meditate, but you're meditating through your device. Do you not think that sometimes is a bit of a negative, because you're still unable to escape your device?
Yeah, and it can be quite hard. Obviously, I sit in a dark room with a candle on and put my phone on Do Not Disturb, so I kind of can switch off from it. And the way that meditation works, obviously, it brings you into the now, so you can kind of switch off from it. But yeah, it's the same as what you were saying. My meditation device is my phone alarm, is by my bed, is my work, is everything, which is why I set limits, so I won't have social media on after a certain time at night.
That's good.
When I wake up in the morning, I make myself do I pick up my phone, turn my alarm off, and I'll always have loads of Instagram stuff, and I don't let myself look at it until I've laid in bed, I've said something that I'm grateful for that morning. I've kind of bring myself into the moment. I say, oh, my bed feels really nice, it's a really nice day, and I'm present. And then I'll do whatever I need to do.
Brilliant.
Because otherwise it takes a minute, like if that, just to do those things. But if you are picking up your phone and the first thing you're doing in the morning, especially if it's my work and I see something from somebody that I don't want to see, then that's you, and that's you for the day. And it's like those moments when you wake up in the morning or when you go to bed at night, like they're awesome moments. They're the few times in your life that you get to be completely yourself, or completely with yourself, with your partner, or whatever it is. And it's like you don't get days like moments like that very often in your day, where you can just, nobody is in your space. And I love that when you're in bed and it's like, this is totally my own space. And the only way that people can get in is if you let them in through your phone. So I think you have to have, for me at least, I'm quite strict in my boundaries with it. And my friends know that as well. Yeah,
it's brilliant that, because a low phone, the iPhone is fantastic. I love mine. Sometimes, although it does give you a lot of freedom, because you can find out any information at any time of the day, regardless of where you are, as long as you've got signal. But at the same time, it takes away some of your freedom, because you can be disturbed, and you can be disturbed by something that's completely irrelevant, like MyFitnessPal saying you haven't logged your breakfast this morning, or just someone that it's not on your terms, is it? You know, when
Yeah.
it could interrupt a special moment with your partner, or even a deep conversation with a friend who really needs to listen to you at that time.
Yeah, exactly that. They're awesome, and we're so lucky to be able to access people all over the world and all of this stuff. But you have to, like anything, it's the boundaries thing. If you don't have boundaries with people or with your phone, then you start to resent things. So if I don't have boundaries, say with social media, I would resent somebody message me at 10 o'clock at night to giving me crap or whatever it was. But then that's my responsibility to say, right, I'm not going to check social media at 10 o'clock at night. But if I don't have that boundary, then I'm going to resent it. And so I think it's the same with people. You have to say where your boundaries are, and then it stops you from resenting that person or that thing. And so phones are so powerful to kind of have to be strict on, I think.
Learned a lot again this week. A lot. Last week it was business. This week it's everything. Everything else.
Yes.
Need some creatine order codes. We should be sponsored
Yeah,
by some sort
couple.
of...
Need promo codes, Emilia 20, anything like that.
Don't do any of that stuff.
Thanks so much for coming on. It's been really, really interesting. Just love this
fun.
conversation.
Thank you.
today.
Yeah, it's flown as well.
I know, it's gone really fast. I'm just excited I get to eat a protein bar now.
Yeah.
All
You can eat
protein
more than
bars.
one.
Oh,
You can eat all the
what
protein
a
bars.
treat. They're all the really good ones as well. Genuinely, I'm quite excited.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.